by far the most idiotic killer I've ever seen in my entire life. You know, I used to stay in this neighborhood for almost 12 years, and throughout my entire secondary school life, I never knew this case happened. Singapore, a vibrant hot tropical island located in Southeast Asia off the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula, has a population of approximately 5.84 million as of 2024. The city-state spans 710 kilometers and is home to a diverse population comprising primarily Chinese, Malay, Indian, and Eurasian. This country is known for exceptionally low crime rate, which is among the lowest in the world. Crime rates, particularly for homicide cases, can be as low as 0.17%. The reputation for safety has been upheld through decades. This is due to the law enforcement being strict, where major cases could lead to capital punishments. It is so safe here that I can simply walk out in the middle of the night, knowing I'll be fine. However, does low crime mean no crime? Today, we'll be covering 3 most notorious cases where safety was not in their favor. With such low odds of crime happening, how did these crimes unfold? And what happened to these places now? Let's find out. In the year 1981, 2 children were reported missing on separate occasions, 9-year-old Agnes Enslu Hope and 10-year-old Ghazali bin Marzuki. Agnes was reported missing on January 24th after being last seen by her sister and friend at a church in Toa Payoh around 4 p.m. Later that night, authorities discovered a brown travel bag in the lift lobby of Block 11, just less than a kilometer away from the church. Unfortunately, what was found inside the bag was Agnes' lifeless body. The autopsy report revealed evidences of sexual assault, and the cause of her demise was due to asphyxiation, possibly by drowning. This incident led to an extensive investigation by the authorities, questioning almost 250 people around the crime scene, but no leads or clues were found. Okay, so this is where Agnes was last seen around 4 p.m. Where she was found is somewhere around there. We will get there in a while. Apparently she was sedated here and she was brought to that location either by car or foot. Let's see how long it takes to go there. So we reach here in about 20 minutes. One interesting information that I found about this neighborhood when I was exploring is that this is the actual Block 11. Now it's been reconstructed and rebuilt into Block 10B. But we're going to use this block as a reference to talk about the story. Let's go. Although this is not the actual building, this is the alleged location where Agnes was found in a brown bag. I just personally can't believe that someone can do something horrible like this and go on with their day like it's nothing. It's pretty sad. On February 6, another child was reported missing. Ghazali was last seen boarding a taxi with an unidentified woman. This happened outside of Block 344, Clementi Avenue 5, where his grandmother lives. A day later, Ghazali was found deceased under a tree in between Block 10 and 11 of Toa Payoh, around the same area where Agnes was found. Autopsy report discovered similar evidences. Although there was no sign of sexual assault, the boy's cause of death is through asphyxiation, possibly due to drowning. Similar MO. However, unlike the previous victim, this case provided authorities with a crucial lead as a trail of blood was discovered leading up to the 7th floor of Block 12. So this is the alleged location where Ghazali was found under a tree in between Block 10 and Block 11. The investigation officers found a trail of blood from here leading to Block 12 right over there. I just want to say something about this. This is by far the most idiotic killer I've ever seen in my entire life. Not only did you murder an innocent child, which is stupid in itself, you dumped him right under your block. What is wrong with you? The officer in charge of the crime scene, Inspector Pereira, followed the blood trail to apartment 467F. He knocked on the door and was greeted by the owner of the apartment, Adrian Lim. Adrian informed the officer that he lived in the apartment with his wife, Tan Mu Chu, and his girlfriend, Ho Ka Hong. With Adrian's cooperation, Inspector Pereira and his team proceeded to conduct a search of his apartment. During their search, they noticed many unusual candle setups, indicating a form of ritualistic practices that have been ongoing in the house. They also noticed various blood stains around the house. When questioned, Adrian tried to explain the blood stains as chicken's blood used in his rituals. However, things were getting more suspicious when another officer found a piece of paper containing information about Agnes and Ghazali. Adrian then tried to explain that Ghazali's parents had brought him to the house for his nosebleed treatment. However, his story grew more suspicious when officers noticed him trying to secretly get rid of a bundle of hair which was found under the carpet. He was attempting to flush it down the toilet, but the officer spotted him and immediately stopped him. With all the red flags raising suspicions, Inspector Pereira told one of his colleagues to run a background check on Adrian. This revealed that Adrian was already under investigation for an ongoing case. When Adrian overheard this, he became visibly agitated. He and his wife Tan Mu Chu began shouting at the officers. Their behavior only heightened the inspector's suspicions, leading them to believe that the three of them might be closely involved in the murders. The officers proceeded to arrest Adrian, Tan Mu Chu, and Ho Ka Hong for questioning. So downstairs is the apartment where Adrian Lim lived. I'm not going to go visit and disturb the residents there. I'm just going to take a peek and I'm going to leave. As I mentioned before, Ghazali's nose was bleeding, which led to a blood trail that the investigation officers followed to Adrian's apartment. And Adrian's apartment is right next to the staircase. It's kind of crazy because I'm standing right here right now and I can kind of feel that this is what he did. He brought Ghazali down this very stairs to the murder location right there. It's nuts, it's insane. Adrian Lim and his accomplices were charged with murder and were sentenced to mandatory death sentences, where Adrian Lim yelled, "Thank you, my lords," to the judges. Although appeals were made to reconsider the ruling of Tan and Ho, the verdict was maintained as final. On 25th November 1988, the three of them had their final meal and were brought to the gallows. Adrian Lim was seen smiling throughout the entire process, where at 6 a.m. in the morning, Adrian Lim, Tan Mu Chu, and Ho Ka Hong were executed. All in all, we have explored the bio, so I would like to share some things about Adrian Lim. He's apparently a spiritual medium who targets innocent young women to do sexual favors for him. With that information itself, we can kind of tell what kind of a horrible person he is. So what pisses me off the most is that he killed 2 innocent children just to deviate the authorities over his ongoing case. It shows that Adrian Lim prioritizes his public image over innocent lives, which is a typical sign of a psychopath. I would just like to say that my heart goes out to Ghazali and Agnes's family for their loss. My condolences. Funny thing is, I used to stay in this neighborhood for almost 12 years, and throughout my entire secondary school life, I never knew this case happened. Well, on to the next story. In the year 1984, a man named Ayakannu Marimuthu was reported missing to the Juchat police station by his wife, Nagarathavalli Ramaya. She claimed that her husband had been missing since December 12, where Ayakannu had allegedly left Singapore for a gambling escapade to Genting Highlands. However, no evidence was discovered and the case was simply closed. Ayakannu was still missing for almost 3 years with no sign of him anywhere. Detective G. Alagamalai was skeptical about the missing person case and decided to reinvestigate. He found it weird that Ayakannu's wife did not follow up this case any further for her missing husband. With his intensive investigation, he found out that Ayakannu in fact didn't leave Singapore, as there was no record of his particulars found in any immigration of him leaving the country. As the detective decided to investigate the wife and her family, information about Ayakannu was brought to light. He was allegedly an alcoholic prone to domestic violence, generally beating his wife during his drunken episodes. By further investigating the wife's family, the detective began suspecting the family to be possible perpetrators for the murders of Ayakannu. 6 suspects, including Ayakannu's wife, her mother, her 3 brothers, and her sister-in-law were arrested for questioning on the 23rd of March 1987. After 2 days of questioning, one of Ramaya's brothers confessed to the crime he committed. He admitted that he assaulted Ayah Khanna to death with an iron rod, and the eldest brother, who was a butcher, proceeded to dissect Ayah Khanna's body and allegedly cooked him in curry. The brothers then disposed of the remains in various trash cans around the neighborhood. Despite being charged with murder for Ayah Khanna, due to the lack of evidence, the family was free to go. They are currently living among us in society, as we wonder if any of this is actually true. Okay, so this is the caretaker home where Ayah Khanna was murdered, right behind the church, as you can see. 2 years after the murder, they did a renovation where they removed the kitchen stove and the kitchen sink that was used to cook him. So we have explored Presbyterian Church. To be honest with you, this is one of the most mysterious cases ever because it's nothing to explore. A lot of information that was shared to us was based off of a conversation given by the brother. And even that, we do not know whether it's true. So I don't even know whether the murder actually occurred here. There was rumors circulating around the church that the visitors were served with food using Ayah Khanna's curry. With all these rumors and stories that has been shared to us and the research that we have done, in the end of the day, none of it is actually concrete. So we don't even know any of this is true. But in actuality, how was he murdered? On January 6, 1979, tragedy struck the Tan family. They lived on the 5th floor of Block 58 in Geylang Bahru. The family's 4 children, aged 5 to 10, were found deceased in their home. Their parents, Tan Kuen Chai and Lee Mei Ying, were devastated by the scene that awaited them. Earlier that morning, around 6:35 a.m., Tan Kuen Chai and Lee Mei Ying, who operated a minibus service, left for work. As part of their usual routine, they checked on their children that were still asleep before leaving. By 7:10 a.m., Lee Mei Ying tried calling home to wake the children, but after several attempts, she received no answer. Being concerned, she asked her neighbor to check on them. At 8 a.m., the neighbor knocked on the door but received no response, assuming the children were still asleep. By 10 a.m., when the couple returned home, they were met with an unimaginable horror. Alright, this is the infamous Block 58. As you can look around, you can see the place looks different, more revitalized and fresh compared to back in the 80s. Although it's renovated, this place holds a lot of history. This is where Block 58 is. So you can see that it's a pretty new block, but we're just going to take a look at how the corridor looks like when you go to the 5th floor. So let's take a look. Alright, so we made it to the location where the murder possibly occurred back in the 80s. According to the report that was mentioned in the past, they mentioned that the corridors were very narrow and the houses were very close. So I find it very odd that no one heard anything about the murder. Compared to now, if you see the houses, they are more far apart from each other. So because of that, I will say it's more believable that no one heard anything if the murder occurred here. Kind of odd, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, it's raining very heavily right now, but guess what? I came to another block to talk about another part of the story, but I actually found the exact replica of the infamous Block 58 corridor. Take a look. Police quickly determined that this was a planned crime, as there were no signs of forced entry. This led them to believe the perpetrator may have known the family. Although the crime weapons were not found, traces of blood in the kitchen sink suggested the perpetrator had attempted to cover their tracks. It appeared that the oldest child had struggled as strands of long hair were found in his hand, indicating he had tried to defend himself, but it turned out to be his own hair. The first suspect was linked to rumors that suggested that Lee Mei Ying had been involved on a tontine scheme, which led to a conflict with another member. There were also rumors that she may have taken someone's lottery winnings. 2 women were questioned in connection with these rumors, but no evidence was found to support these claims. 8 days after the incident, the investigation took a new turn when a taxi driver came forward with a tip, bringing us to the second suspect. The driver reported picking up a young man near Block 61, close to the crime scene. The man had blood stains on his clothes, and a knife handle was visible above his waistband. When asked about the blood, the man said that someone had beaten him up. It was rumored that the young man was a neighbor of the Tan family and often visited to use their phone. Despite suspicions, the police had to release him due to the lack of concrete evidence. This is the blog where suspect number 2 took a cab. He was actually covered in blood and he had a weapon in his waistband. I'm still wondering why no one is keeping tabs on him because I feel like he's the killer. Tan Quen Chai, the father, recalled an incident a few months before the murder when the family nearly became victims of a robbery. One of the children had discovered the attempt, which made the family more cautious. Not only that, but a neighbor reported that a suspicious man had knocked on their door 5 days before the murders. He quickly left when he realized it wasn't the right house, which is strange, but he could have genuinely been someone that lost his way. Another neighbor mentioned that Lee Mei-ying had lost the keys a month prior, but the family hadn't changed the locks. 2 weeks after the incident, the parents received a disturbing Chinese New Year card. The card showed children playing together, and the message written in Chinese said, "Now you can have no more children. Ha ha ha." Signed, the murderer. The sender used the parents' nickname, Ah Chai and Ah Ing, which suggested it was someone they were close to. To this day, the case remains unsolved. Okay, I finally explored Geylang Bahru and I have a lot of information I gained from exploring that place. So the first one I'd like to share is that a month prior, Archai lost the keys, and because of that, we have a speculation that the murderer may have access to the keys, hence there's no signs of forced entry. Another possible scenario that could happen is that the kids could have opened the door for the murderer. That means it's giving indication that the murderer is well known to the family, so the kids have no suspicion that this is a threat. Another piece of information that was bothering me when I was exploring the replica corridor of the infamous Block 58 is that the corridors were very close to each other. And I find it very weird that no one heard anything. Because when I was walking by that corridor, I can even hear residents speaking with closed doors. One key information that I would like to share about the murderer's psychology is the fact that when he actually murdered the children, he stacked them on top of each other after the murder. It gives a very clear-cut sign of a serial killer's mentality. He wanted to show off what he wanted to do, and he wanted to send a message to the parents. This seemed like a personal vendetta killing. Last but not least is the key point that makes me feel strongly that the murderer is closely tied to the family is the fact that the information about Archai having a sterilization after her last child and the card that was sent to her regarding her not having any children anymore made it very, very sus. All in all, in conclusion, when I explored Geylang Bahru, it gave me a very weird feeling that innocent children were killed. And when I set foot in those replica corridor or anywhere in the neighborhood, despite being it refurbished, it had that weird, eerie weight around the location. And I just want to let people know that this is a very tragic thing, and my heart does go out to the family that lost 4 innocent children. Well, crimes that happened back then are clearly heinous and something unimaginable coming from a country known to be one of the safest places in the world. How is it possible for these criminals to escape the law? Except for the first case, one major reason would be due to the lack of technological advancements in forensic science, which we have today. If these cases were committed in the current times, surely the culprits would be caught. A survey conducted by Gallup Global Law and Order stated that in 1981, 51% of Singaporeans were scared walking alone in the neighborhood at night, compared to in 2020, where 97% feel safe. At the end of the day, let's remember that behind each of these stories are real people, families, and lives forever impacted. By listening and understanding, we honor their memory and bring attention to the need for empathy and justice. Stay safe and see y'all next time. Peace.